there is an increasing demand for plastic products, and this has driven manufacturers to highly rely on virgin materials. Manufacturers relying on virgin materials means that there is going to be a huge exploitation for fossil fuel to produce plastic products. This means that it would deplete resources and also, in the course of exploiting these virgin materials, increase greenhouse emissions.
For Africa, we've had several impacts of climate change. Most of them are very severe. For example, we have consistent flooding in the recent time. These are impact of the changes that we have in the climate system. We have drought, which is also consistent, and especially recently. We know that most countries in Africa depend on rain-fed agriculture. So once we have differences in rainfall amount or the times of rain, it affects agricultural production and it affects the economy of these countries in Africa.
We are engaging government to be able to explore the possibilities of seeing how fiscal policy can be leveraged to support green enterprises with some of the challenges that they face, because these are businesses that face consequential problems unique to them because of the kinds of businesses that they do. And the least government can do is leverage its power of fiscal policy through incentives to be able to create that environment that allows them to thrive.
The Government of Canada knows that urgent action is needed, and we doubled our international climate finance commitment to $5.3 billion. Canada's support includes initiatives like the Ghana Climate Innovation Centre, because we cannot resolve these problems just with the public sector. We need the private sector, entrepreneurs, and small and medium-sized enterprises, because they all have a crucial role to play.
We received grant support from GCIC that helped us to acquire machinery, a new plastic crusher that has a capacity of 3 tons per hour. We are looking at doing about 80 to 90 metric tons a month. This makes us the biggest recycling company in Western Region currently. We now have a washing line where we can wash the plastics that we crush and make it very quality for the manufacturers that we supply the plastics to. We also leveraged on the support from GCIC to acquire EPA certification for our new site, which is a huge milestone for our organization.
Asa Nwura is a plastic recycling enterprise, and what they basically do is recycle this, formulate them into pellets and sell them off, which are then used to making plastic products like chairs, etc., etc. Now, what that does is that it reduces the need for raw plastics, but it also reduces the environmental impact that the plastic generated into our environment would have been creating for us.
Canada has strong ties with Ghana and several partnerships on environment, climate action, and the reduction of plastic pollution. So we're motivated to support climate innovation and sustainable efforts here because we recognize there's a capacity for entrepreneurs to develop innovative solutions, address climate issues, create more jobs, and improve livelihoods.
Instead of a global organization directly taking the challenge on, they supported the local institutions to take the direct lead, supporting homegrown leaders, being forward-thinking in their processes where they recognize the needs as coming from the institutions as opposed to being imposed.
Prior to joining GCIC, our revenues were suffocating. But with the support from GCIC, we have now been able to step back to the path where we are generating very good revenues per month.
And sometimes the challenge has to do with the fact that they do not have the needed resources to be able to hire the right kind and retain the right kind of talent. All entrepreneurs also have the challenge of accessing professional coaching. Thankfully, which is what GCIC was set out to do.
The impact of this collaboration is tangible. We've seen entrepreneurs develop innovative solutions such as renewable energy projects, sustainable agricultural practices, and eco-friendly manufacturing. And over the past year, I've personally had the opportunity to witness the entrepreneurial spirit and the innovative minds of Ghanaian women and men, and to see the positive impacts of Canada's assistance.
All these plastics that we are recovering would have ended up in the environment to create challenges for people living within the community. When it comes to disease, when it comes to disasters such as flooding, and even the impact it has on climate. But we are trying to solve this problem, recovering these plastics, crushing and processing them into such a manner that it's at par with virgin materials for manufacturers to use them. We are creating employment. We are working with over 130 informal waste pickers, most of them who are women and some who are even aged.
If you yen say dam company fa so menyen ho pa ntumi kampo nti sisi ala mutumu ko because sa de ba meba otan o mamba msumiti nso so na me dam nti ba ma fie kuma nyina la na kwasi mtu bia mko nyina la ba fine ya ne ka ko
na mi ejuma na ejuma nsumi ni shop me ye wo fie na ejuma ni sisi omba scan no nti da media me ba na musmaire.
So, in terms of the impact that GCIC is making with the funding from Global Affairs Canada from the economic and environmental perspectives, this is what the results looks like. Number one, in the last 1.5 years, we have been able to offer employment to almost 600 Ghanaian youth. Number two, our enterprises in the last 1.5 years alone have been able to generate $3.7 million in revenue. From the environmental perspective, these enterprises have been able to avoid over 514,000 metric tons of carbon emissions. What that translates into is the number of carbon emissions generated annually by over 328,000 Ghanaians.
Looking at the future of Ashasi and its two partners, Global Affairs Canada, Ghana Climate Innovation Center, I'd like us to think about something I read about, which is the quintuple helix. And it talks about how academe, private, public sector, society, and the environment need to work cohesively. And in doing so, be very cognizant of how whatever products, processes, or services they produce are impacting the environment, and be very careful in their choices to preserve the environment, because once we preserve the environment, we preserve ourselves. And so that is where I want us to go as a triad.
So as we look ahead, we see a future where green initiatives, like those supported by the Ghana Climate Innovation Center, continue to grow and serve as a blueprint for sustainability across the country and across the region. We also see a place where green entrepreneur initiatives will not be funded by development, but rather they will become part of the private sector ethos, where the return on investment for climate-smart adaptations are embraced. Canada remains committed to supporting Ghana and many other countries' transitions to a healthier, more equitable, and more prosperous green economy.
From January 2022 to September 2023, GCIC, with support from Global Affairs Canada, has supported 70 green businesses, 32 of whom are female-led, sequestered over 558,000 metric tons of carbon emissions, which is the equivalent of what over 355,000 Ghanaians emit annually, held 6 national green roadshows, created 678 new jobs, raised over $4.3 million in cumulative revenue, and served over 5.6 million customers with green goods and services.